and welcome to the Asheville View. Today we're going to discuss social media and both the positive and negative effects on our culture. You know, social media allows us to connect deeper with our friends and family through how we share our pictures and all that other stuff, but it's also had some very negative effects on our culture. So how are you all feeling about social media?
I think personally, being a teacher, I'm a high school teacher, and I see this very negative side of social media when it comes to bullying and putting negative messages out there. School fights, everything is filmed now and everything is shared. So it's not necessarily all positives, because when you're sharing, the more negative things you share, the more negative things happen.
Yeah, I think it's really can be detrimental because you see all of these really like nice photos on Instagram and Facebook and these perfect relationships and these people with nice cars and these beautiful houses, and it makes you feel bad about yourself.
Absolutely.
Because you're like, well, that doesn't look like my life. Like, why am I not living like this? Like, why is this not my relationship? Why don't I have this? And it's damaging. It makes you just like lose your self-worth, and I think that's one of the most damaging aspects of social media.
Absolutely.
Well, I agree, and certainly it's great for connecting to people, relationships, it's great for marketing. It has a lot of positives to it. And over 2 billion people today worldwide are using, you know, Facebook and other social media. The issue is, just like you were saying, Kirby, is people who go on Facebook or Instagram don't feel like they're measuring up sometimes, and they will feel low self-esteem. And that is a huge issue because they think, well, I don't have that loving family or that new car. And so it's not very authentic sometimes. And I know, because I go to Facebook, and I will see these loving, wonderful families and great marriages and candlelight dinners. And I see those patients in my office, they don't even like each other. You know,
Yeah,
they probably
exactly.
can't even stand their husband. Oh, the love of my life. You know, so I think that's the thing that really is confusing for people and isn't really authentic. Not that you should bring out all your trash and dump it there, but I think being more honest about your posting, I think would be better for all of us.
I think we don't know what to share, right? So it's like, you see people are like, oh, they're so happy, we don't want to see that, or don't bring your problems here. So I think it's just a thing about, like, we don't really know how to use social media. When I was growing up, you couldn't just post something on Facebook. Like, you could do things, you could make mistakes, and the whole world didn't have to find out about it.
Right.
And in relationships, like, you could flirt with somebody at the coffee
Oh,
shop.
really? Oh, I didn't
and,
know that.
you know, no one would find out about it. And now it's like, what is appropriate? What is really happening, and what is it that just Facebook is giving us more access to? So I think that's really interesting, and it's hard because we don't have the correct social norms for it yet.
Yeah, and I remember I may have made some mistakes in my past and posted them on Facebook, and my mom would get so mad at me. She'd be like, what are you doing? And I was like, what, Mom? You never done that before? She's like, we did, but we didn't document it. So, you know, like,
Right.
it's definitely just interesting, and I don't know who's going to run for president from my generation because they're going to pull all of that up.
Yeah. Well, maybe then we'll have a president that can make mistakes and be seen as a whole person.
Right.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, hopefully. So we've talked a little bit about the negatives. I mean, I've seen kids drop out of school because of things that have happened on Facebook.
Absolutely.
Bullying.
Just negative messages out there. And it doesn't have to be, we're in such a virtual world now that you don't have to be in the same place to bully others. You can just touch them virtually and ruin them mentally. That's why it's really important to have that conversation with your kids, with our students, with people in the community, and say and use it to spread a positive message.
Check their phones. You
Yes.
have to check your kids' phones. You have to guide them. You can't just tell them about it. You have to intercede. You have to get in there. Make sure they're not sexting. Make sure that they're not bullying. Make sure that they're not being taken advantage of.
Well, I think
via
it's
social
important
media.
to just be a very open parent and
Absolutely.
just definitely like not necessarily like you're gonna get in trouble for this. Like, come to me
Yes.
when this is happening, because I was your age once, and we did the same thing.
Exactly.
And
You
I
just
don't have
to
kids,
keep it
so
real.
I'm not the best, but I just know what relationship I want with my kids, and I would want them to come to me with
Absolutely.
everything.
If they are
no matter
scared,
what.
if they're scared of you, you're not going to know what they're doing. So it's really important to have that open communication and to really show them the damage that can be done over social media, and just to really use it in a good way, because it could damage their future. And it's just really important to use it as a platform for positivity and just really emphasize that this is what we want to do with one another.
And it's not just children that are bullying. Like, let's be honest here. There's fat shaming.
Absolutely.
There's career shaming. There's thought shaming, group think. There's so many things happening.
I've
Yes.
heard of moms actually bullying, like, enemies of their children's, like, on Facebook and social media for their kid.
I was in, when I first had my baby, I was in an Asheville mom group on Facebook, and I asked a question about where's the best studio to go get my kid's ears pierced. And the lash out that I got after that was just disturbing. The amount of criticism and the amount of ugliness and bullying that happened to me after that, for just calling me names and just being abusive to my kid, that was the first kind of wake-up call that people can really hurt you virtually without being in the same room as you. So it's just,
Yes,
it's a dangerous thing.
And you can also hurt yourself, because I know employers are
Absolutely,
looking at
yep.
Facebook. Yes, they'll look at the resume, they'll look at your experience, they'll interview you, but they want to dig deeper. They want to find out who you are. And so, and college admissions as well. So a wide range of things. You need to present your best self.
Absolutely.
I mean, not fake, but just be discerning about what you're posting.
And check your privacy settings. Don't have your stuff open to everybody.
I mean, I am an influencer, so I have over 11,000 followers. And I'll tell you, there are days that I wake up and I want to hide under the covers because of some of the things that have been said to me, or some of the ways that I've been made to feel. And I'm so excited about this movement that we have now, where I'm seeing a lot of celebrities calling out those negative messages and saying, like, this is what someone said to me, and, you know, making light about it, because we're having to teach our kids how to deal with bullying and how to deal with these things, but we have to teach the adults too. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, I know we talk a lot about kid bullying, but this is really happening to us every single day, and it's happening to all of us. We're afraid to post our pictures because we've gained weight. We're afraid to show where we live because we're afraid someone's going to judge us, and it's really ridiculous.
And I think it's just really hard. Like, everyone says, don't worry about what people think, but it's so hard because when so many people, especially if it's like a similar message, say the same thing to you over and over again, you start to believe it.
Absolutely.
And it's really hard to brush it off. It really is. But we always have to remember, like,
Yep.
you are the only person that knows who you are, and you're the only person worthy of telling yourself who you are.
And there's a pressure to show up every day on social media and every time to bring your best self. So if you're not off there for like 24 hours, and even when they are, people normally make a big announcement about it. So it's like a big deal to show up often, which is interesting as well. So we've talked a lot about negative points of social media. Let's talk about the positive of social media.
Well,
Well,
that's
now I know
pretty-
you can get a date on Facebook. I mean, that's good to know.
Right? All right.
And it doesn't even cost anything.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
I like that social media keeps you in touch with the world. But my family lives overseas. They live in Morocco, so my parents love to see pictures of my kid. When we travel, you kind of share so much with, it's a platform. You can have Facebook platforms for your classrooms. You can use Twitter accounts for your classrooms. There's a lot of things that we can do. But again, show realness. And when you're having a bad day, you can post about it too and say, this is really tough. I encourage you to keep going because it's really tough and we're doing it.
You're watching the Asheville View, and we'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sharon Norling. And haven't you just always wanted to just ask your doctor something? Well, that's what I'm here for. And one of the questions that I've been asked is social media addicting? And what is happening to your brain when you're spending sometimes not just minutes, but hours on Facebook or any other social media? Well, it can be an addiction. And the reason it is because social media changes your neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are those chemicals made in your brain that reacts to your moods and your actions in life. So one of the things that really increases with the likes on your Facebook is dopamine. Dopamine is that feel good, that neurotransmitter of happiness and joy and focus and libido, but it's a feel-good neurotransmitter. So people like likes because it increases their dopamine. But also, there's issues with self-esteem on Facebook or Instagram, and that causes stress. So that creates increased cortisol levels or lower serotonin, the calming, happy neurotransmitter. So people feel anxious and depressed. So it really affects our body, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And recent studies have shown brain scans that if you are addicted to social media or have lack of self-esteem because of it, then the size of your brain can diminish by 20%. That's huge. So next time you go to Facebook, just remember to protect your brain.
And we're back. And today our special guest is Sarah Benoit, and she is here from JB Media Institute, where she is the co-founder and lead instructor. Sarah is an amazing marketing genius, and I just am so excited to have you here so we can talk to you about how we can better brand ourselves. Of course, I'm into social media, but I still want to hear from you about how we brand ourselves and make the best out of social media.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here. I think the number one way that we have to start with branding is through storytelling. So a lot of times the storytelling is really what makes people feel connected. So we have to get away from thinking of quote unquote branding and really think about the stories of ourselves, the story of our customers, the story of our company. I actually worked in corporate healthcare for quite a long time before I got into this part of the industry. So I think we always have to think about things like HIPAA laws and how to protect people's privacy, as well as being careful about the information we give out when we're talking about anything related to the medical field. But I think actually for most doctors and practitioners, it's actually really important for you to continue to think from a story place, because people are going to choose you instead of choosing somebody else as a resource or as a doctor, simply because they feel a connection to you and they feel like you understand them. So I do actually think you have to step into that role of believing it is about you and it is about your story. And your story itself serves the public in a way by letting them know what's possible and where you come from and how you can actually deepen your relationship with them.
My question is, as a person trying to brand yourself, what is the number one faux pas that can happen when it comes to branding and marketing yourself in general?
Yeah, I think the number one faux pas goes with sort of everything I've already said, which is being too professional and stuffy and holding everything in, being worried that people will perceive you as a real person, which on social media is actually what they came there for. To see that you're a real person, to see that your company is built on real people. So I feel like that's the number one thing that people have to push through, is that resistance to letting their authentic self shine through in a professional way and not feel like they're giving away the farm per se or giving away all their personal information.
Right. Thank you.
Well, I want to know, for example, scrolling down Instagram, I get a million ads for these delivery kits for your skin. And you have all these ads with the people that are like, this is amazing, and they're telling their story. How, when you're selling the same product but a different company, do you set yourself apart from a different one when you have the same ad campaign?
So I think one of the things that people struggle with is that nothing we do on social media is that original. So that's usually something that I think makes people feel sad inside. Like, I'm not that original. I'm like, there's over 7.5 billion people on the planet. None of us are that original.
Right.
So we have to just sort of be realistic about that, and I think dig deeper into the details of the story. So how are problems being solved? How are questions being answered? How am I accomplishing my goals or overcoming an obstacle? And how can we dig into the more detailed version of that? I think advertising gets repetitive when we're saying the same thing over and over. It stops becoming believable. You start to feel like it's just rehearsed. So I think it's about actually taking that story to a deeper level and making it more personal and not being afraid.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, you're an influencer. I mean, you are a marketing madam. Like you serve it when it comes to marketing for sure. But then another part of what you do, or what I've watched you do, is influence. You've influenced how we look at social media as a community on a local level, and I'm so proud of you for doing that. How do you maintain balance with your own social media and with that sort of celebrity that you have and influence that you have in telling your story?
Yeah, I think balance is incredibly important. And what was shared earlier from the medical perspective and the perspective of your brain, I think is key to remember. And I've noticed for myself, I spend a lot of time working on social media, then using it personally as well. And I can feel when it starts to feel bad. You know, and I think it's a level of awareness that we all have to build individually, so that when we're using these tools, we use these tools in a positive way instead of allowing them to become negative.
Yeah. So what would you say to any young people who may be watching the show, or older people, because it seems like now everyone wants to be an influencer. You know, we toss that word around. It's a buzzword now. What advice would you give to anyone who's building a brand and telling their story? What would be like that foundational thing you tell them to start with?
I think the foundational thing that you have to begin with in order to establish yourself is to realize that you're building trust with people. And that is a huge responsibility. So you're going to be leading them down the road of believing in products, believing in concepts, believing in all sorts of different things. So know that you are building trust with them and that you have to deserve that trust.
Well, we're so glad to have had you here today on the Asheville View. We appreciate you. We've learned so much from you.
So much.
And we just can't wait to see you out in the world influencing us to be better people. And that's the Asheville View. We'll see you next week.